Hello everyone to the second half of the World Stem Cell Summit Public Day. We are so pleased and proud to be holding the World Stem Cell Summit in Winston-Salem. Adjacent to the Biotech Place is the medical school where I co-chair with Joan Shank of the leader of education at Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine, and Dr. Tony Atala, who's the director of the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine for the Regenerative Medicine Essentials course. One of the things that the Regenerative Medicine Foundation has utilized over the years is the power of the award. You know, it's much more powerful to give an award than receive one. But we have found great pleasure on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Regenerative Medicine Foundation to honor those organizations that have made an impact and moved the needle for our field of medicine to move forward. Stem cells, regenerative medicine, cell therapies is a pillar of medicine. The biologics, drugs, medical devices, but this new pillar of medicine with all the converging technologies that we have today promise the power to heal, to regrow damaged tissues and organs. They're almost salvation technologies. But how are we going to bring this to the world? Well, the individuals that we've honored and organizations over the years have moved the needle in so many ways, through inspiration, through advocacy, grassroots advocacy, national advocacy, pathfinding science, leadership. So our next speaker is Lisa McClellan. Lisa's organization, the Ring of Brotherhood Foundation, will be receiving the Regenerative Medicine Action Award for Grassroots Advocacy. Now, over the last 19 years, we've recognized outstanding organizations. Past honorees have included leaders in philanthropy, advocacy, education, and policy, including then former Vice President Joe Biden and Dr. Jill Biden for the Cancer Initiative, Bob Klein, who formulated Prop 71 and Prop 14 and brought $10 billion of California taxpayer money in exchange for signatures, ballot signatures, to support the field of regenerative medicine. Michael J. Fox, our speaker this morning, Dr. Jean Loring, who's bringing back from near extinction the northern white rhino, philanthropists like Bernie Marcus, governors of states, Jennifer Granholm, Martin O'Malley, Jim Doyle, and we're going to be honoring tomorrow for leadership Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina. We've recognized organizations such as Research America, the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation, individual advocates such as Doug Oliver, Hadassah, the Huntington's Disease Grassroots Advocacy Community, ALS Worldwide, Parkinson's Action Network, and many, many others. It's been my great honor to give this award, which is unique. I see Adrienne Belcourt Shapiro, who is our leading sickle cell honoree, in the audience. And if I go and look around this audience, I'll see many more. And I'm so honored. Mahindra Rao with our Pathfinder Science Award from last year, Camillo Ricordi and others are here. So let's talk a little bit about the Ring of Brotherhood and Lisa McClellan. Lisa is probably one of the greatest sisters in the world. Her brother Gerald G-Man McClellan was injured in professional boxing. A middleweight, super middleweight champion, I believe, of world renown, was injured in a prize fight and was severely brain damaged. For 20 years, Lisa and her sisters have taken care of Gerald lovingly and kept him on his feet. But understanding the plight of the community, of especially professional boxers and fighters, but also other athletes, and what they have to endure, and the challenges are so extraordinary. But Lisa was not the person just to stand on ceremony or to just be a caregiver without caring for the broader community. So Lisa put together, with a team of wonderful people that I'll be calling up to the podium in a minute, the Ring of Brotherhood and the Ring of Brotherhood Foundation, which will give medical support to those athletes in need, but also support the science and cutting-edge work that we need. And for our world of patient advocates, and we lean into patient advocacy at the World Stem Cell Summit, Lisa represents a constituency, and her brother represent a constituency of largely minority community that have entertained us, that have persevered and suffered tremendously. So I'm going to recognize Lisa, and also I want to recognize, besides the members of the Ring of Brotherhood community, another friend, and that's Christy Martin. Now, Christy Martin is a public figure. She's standing there with her little dog, Champ. And you may know her, especially if you followed professional sports, as the coal miner's daughter. I've had the occasion now to have several conversations with Christy. To say that she's a survivor is an understatement. Her story will touch any heart. You might have seen the Netflix documentary, Deal with the Devil, in 2021, of all that she endured from growing up as a champion athlete in West Virginia, being discovered by Don King, and being on the undercard of some of Mike Tyson's greatest fights, the largest purses. She is a part of the International Boxing Hall of Fame, a genuine world champion. And the World Boxing Council, which is the leading sanctioning body in the world, has sent Christy, the champion, here. And Christy, if you'll come up too. And I'm very, very proud to be able to, and Christy and Lisa both will be speaking in a minute. I'm very proud to be able to give the Grassroots Advocacy Award to Lisa McClellan and the Ring of Brotherhood. We're going to take a minute and have picture time.
We are a movement with the heart. Can you hear the beat? Or are you watching the signs? The world overflows with compelling stories. Some known and some unknown. We listen today to tell yesterday and build tomorrow. Do you feel the pulse? We're here to treat the forgotten, inspire the famous, entertain the supporters, and if God permits, change lives forever. We are Ring of Brotherhood.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa McClellan, and I would love to thank Bernie for this awesome award. And just to tell you a little bit about who we are, 3 years ago, I met three amazing people. Over the years, well, let me go back. 28 years ago, Gerald was hurt in the ring in England, and he had a blood clot. And it started, we didn't know what the outcome was gonna be. So I vowed 28 years ago to be by his side as long as he needed me. So 28 years later, I am still by his side. So 3 years ago, I met some amazing partners, Pastor Margie, William, And we started this journey. We wanted to film athletes and not just tell their stories. We wanted to tell their stories and also provide them with the help they needed. So we started an LLC. We've met wonderful people. We had the opportunity to meet with Joe at Boston BioLife, who introduced us to a lot of amazing people. And so we started filming. We filmed a sizzle reel, and we had a lot of opportunities as far as in multimedia. People were interested in the story, but no one wanted to hear the story exactly the way it was. No one was ready to accept the fact that fighters leave the ring damaged. So it was something that I've lived for 28 years, and something that I thought for years I was the only person going through this. So I started meeting other sisters and mothers and brothers and other caregivers, and their story was identical to mine. We had no help. Most of the doctors in the area we live have no clue on how to help me. The major issue my brother has is behavior issues. So there's no doctors to even prescribe anything that could help his behavior. So I started this journey to help my brother and to help all the other fighters and athletes that were suffering. So we knew that we had to figure out how we were gonna pay to get help for these guys. So we started the Ring of Brotherhood LLC, and our mission, our mission was to present to the world compelling stories of professional athletes through multimedia and to bring awareness to their life challenges. And our vision was to use the power of entertainment to inspire a movement for the world to appreciate these athletes. So the first thing I did was I got together with a bunch of doctors and scientists and journalists, and we wrote treatment plans on just the different treatments that were out there on how we could help the fighters. And so then we had to figure out a way to bring the treatments to the fighters, because there's no pension plans, there's no insurance. So when your career is over as a fighter, you're pretty much left on your own. So I'll just quickly go through it, but here's our slide presentation of what our mission is for our foundation. So this is who we are. We plan to advocate for not just fighters in need, but any fighter that has suffered a traumatic brain injury or life-altering damage through combat sports. And we want through our clinical research, we want to be able to offer assistance, not only to support the fighters, but to also support the family members that take care of the fighters. No one knows as much as I do how important it is to even have that support. As a family member, excuse me, for 28 years, I've kind of been on this journey by myself. So that's one thing that's very important. We want to make sure the family also has the support. And this is my story. This is what I do 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And we want to start a movement where everyone around the combat sports pay attention to what's happening to our fighters, pay attention in the ring, and to also pay attention to things that are happening outside the ring. We've had fighters that have left the ring and been cleared to leave the ring only to suffer blood clots hours later or other damage, which probably could have been prevented if someone realized the signs at the time that the fighter left the ring. So we want to protect these guys. So I started a campaign to present PSAs to the world of what's most important inside the ring and outside the ring. So I have one of the doctors that work on our clinical research committee and has been very supportive. This is Dr. Mark Gordon.
When you have a concussion, the brain is jarred within the skull, and that concussion leads to axon damage, bleeding. That bleeding leads to increase in inflammatory chemicals that turn on the inflammatory mechanism to try and protect the brain. I think one of the greatest disservices that is being done to our athletes who have sustained a concussion or a traumatic brain injury is that they're immediately put into the category, because of change in personality, as being a psychiatric case. Someone who has a personality defect or altered mental health. Well, you have to look at why that occurs. And that occurs because of a medical situation called inflammation. This is not a psychiatric causation. The end result might be a psychiatric appearance, but the true problem is a biochemical medical condition. We need to change how we look at things. Otherwise, it's going to continue.
These PSAs were made by 12 Creative, which is a wonderful young man that we met that has worked with us in our filming our projects, Rashawn McClellan. So our second PSA is from a fighter's perspective, and this is the daughter and the grandchildren of Muhammad Ali, which the one son is a professional boxer and the second son is a UFC fighter.
It's very important to be safe inside and outside the ring.
Inside the cage, obviously you got a lot of eyes on you, but it's still important to follow the rules and to be healthy and to be safe.
I mean, I think a lot of people see us fighters as objects, you know, just beating up on each other.
That's the right hand. A knockdown.
They don't care much about it. The first thing I would say to them is talk to my parents and see how they feel about watching me get hit.
It's hard to describe as a mother what goes on in my mind when both my boys are fighting. Inside, I'm praying for not just a victory, but I'm praying for their safety and also the safety of their opponent. You know, they say boxing is an individual sport, and that is true, but it's not really. It is a team sport. If the official's not doing his job, then it should fall to the trainer. If the trainer's not doing his job, then it should fall to the cornerman. So it should be a team that is really sole priority is to protect the fighter's health.
when Pastor and I went to Las Vegas to film these PSAs, our biggest obstacle was getting the professionals or the fighters, the managers, the trainers to actually be on film. No one wanted to talk about this. No one wanted to have, or I think they didn't want anyone to know that they were involved in accepting that this was taking place. So that was our hardest, the hardest thing we faced when we were filming this. But through relationships and great people in boxing, we started a relationship with the WBC, which I've worked with Mauricio Suleiman, who's the president of WBC, for about 12 years now. He's been an awesome person taking care of the fighters. He offers a yearly grant to the athletes. He helps with housing, medical, and other things. So when I started this, I wanted Mauricio to know that we weren't, the Ring of Brotherhood, we weren't launching an attack on boxing. We just wanted to make people aware of what was happening to the fighters. And I think it was at a time where this couldn't be denied anymore. So many fighters were leaving the ring damaged. So he agreed to team up with us. So we are now the Ring of Brotherhood Foundation, powered by the WBC, which is probably the largest sanctioning body in boxing. So that relationship is going to allow us, or to make people feel more comfortable talking about this situation, because the biggest sanctioning body in boxing is okay talking about it. So hopefully this relationship is going to open a lot of those doors for us to where people will be comfortable having these conversations on what we need to do to keep the fighters safe. So we are in the process of having our first Ring of Brotherhood Gala, which is going to be held in Clovis, California on September 9th, 2023. So our Friday night event, we have a sports and brain health symposium, excuse me, where we want to bring together a lot of physicians, and we want to bring the athletes from the professional boxing to MMA to all areas of combat sports. We want to bring those guys together, and we want to merge boxing and science. We want to have a conversation where we have doctors that are actually going to inform the fighters what their future is going to be like if they continue to take punches, and just we want to have conversations on things they can do to prevent it. We want the fighters, the families to be able to ask questions. So that's our Friday night event. Saturday, we have a black tie formal dinner where we have an award ceremony, we have a live auction and entertainment. And then on Sunday, because the partners at Ring of Brotherhood, one thing that we do, and we've done for 3 years, we meet twice a week. And every time we meet, we start our meeting with prayer, and we end our meeting with prayer. And we've received nothing but blessings, including this award. Thank you, Bernie. So we base everything on what we do. We wait for God to give us the direction. So on Sunday, we want to give back to the homeless community. So we'll set up somewhere in Clovis, and we want to provide 500 hot meals and toiletries to the homeless, and just to provide the services and give the homeless people the love that they need. So that's our Sunday event. So that's who we are, the Ring of Brotherhood Foundation. I would personally like to thank Joe Krieger, because Joe has come aboard through a mutual friend of ours and who has since passed away. And when Ryan passed away, a lot of people that was kind of involved in us when we first started, we kind of lost them along the wayside when we lost Ryan. But Joe stayed really committed to the Ring of Brotherhood and what we're doing. So I would really like to thank Joe for every relationship that he's merged with the Ring of Brotherhood Foundation, including Bernie. We really want to thank you, Bernie, for believing in us and wanting to help the Ring of Brotherhood Foundation, and for also seeing something in us that you would honor us with this wonderful award. I have save the date flyers, and we have business cards that we like to pass out to anyone who would like to be a part of what we're doing to help our athletes. So any one of my partners have that information. And I'd like to end with our final PSA and a little story to this PSA. So about 3 months ago, I had got a lot of DMs from people in the boxing world. It was another fighter that was hurt in the ring, a young man that was probably the same age as my brother, which he was 25 when he was injured in the ring. So this young man was 24, and I watched the fight, and I saw my brother was blinking probably from the 7th round, but he didn't get help until the 11th round, which he knew he was in trouble, so he took the knee. But the officials was gonna allow the fight to continue, so he stopped the fight himself. He was never knocked out or knocked down. He knew he was in trouble and he couldn't continue. So I watched the video that someone sent me, and it was another young man, a baby, he was 24 years old, being carried out of the ring on a stretcher. So I called the referee, and I was angry at him because he didn't stop the fight. So I kind of called him to bless him out. And when I heard his voice, the Lord spoke to me that maybe I should be supportive to this guy instead of blessing him out. So we talked for a couple hours and came together that maybe we could do something together to maybe educate people. So this is probably one of the biggest referees, or one of the most popular referees in professional boxing. His name is Tony Weeds, and he's been a really great supporter of the Ring of Brotherhood. And he's taken a lot of criticism because since we've met and since we've talked, he has now ref the fights different. He's called fights and not allowed the athletes to be hurt or to sustain unnecessary damage. And he's taken a lot of flack in the media for doing that, but it's because what we're doing, the message is getting out there that you can enjoy a fight without the fighter having to be carried out of the ring on a stretcher. So we have great people like Tony who's gonna help us make a difference to protect our athletes. So this is the PSA with Tony Weeks.
As referees, we're in that ring with those two guys, and we see and hear everything that's happening in that ring that the fans or people on the outside don't see and hear.
Overhand shot
Anything that happens in that ring, there's always a domino effect.
I do this every day with you. Hold on to me. Yeah.
These fighters, they have families, they have kids, they have wives and brothers, so forth and so on. So everybody's connected in that human way. I was a fan before I was a referee, so I understand how fans, may think and may react to certain things, but understand, the human side of it, and not just from the referee, but from the fighters themselves, and just have a little more compassion.
Okay, now I'm gonna cry, baby. Thank you guys so much. Yes. So, with our relationship, our new partnership with the WBC, Christy is very, very loved by the world, but especially her WBC family. So Mauricio couldn't be with us tonight, so he sent us his champion. So here's Christy Martin.
I think I'm mic'd, I think. I'm going to tell you, I have so much I want to say after listening to Lisa, and so much. Why are you leaving me up here by myself? Really? So it's a great honor to be here with the Ring of Brotherhood, and Lisa, even though she's trying to leave me. It's an extreme honor to be representing the WBC. And just so you guys out there, you brainiacs, WBC for us stands for World Boxing Council, not white blood cells. So Mauricio was great. And with the WBC, they have one of the very first things that he did was change from the 15-round championship fights to the 12-round championship fights, and that's trying to protect fighters. He also implemented and was a very strong supporter of day before weigh-in. So it's 24 hours so the fighter has time to rehydrate. As we all know that going in there dehydrated, your brain has no juices to slosh around in, you start getting hit, that's when we have these concussions and sometimes worse. The WBC has also very well known for helping fighters after their career, not just for health issues, but personal issues. And I can attest to that because in 2010, the WBC helped me. They have mandatory drug testing for all the ranked fighters now, and that's drug testing as in cheating kind of drugs, not street drugs. And the bad thing is, even though fighters know they're going to be tested, they're still being caught. But all the issues are not just at these top elite fighters that are fighting for millions of dollars. Sometimes it's these guys that are just starting out at this lower level. And trainers are pushing them to make weights there that are just unrealistic. Again, putting them into a ring where there's no fluids up there for their brain to bounce around in, or they're so tired that they can't really protect themselves as the rounds go on. And I say this happens to the elite fighters. I have a couple stories of my own. And just so you know, I'm a domestic violence awareness speaker. I'm a survivor. So coming to speak to you guys about boxing is a little different for me, but I do have some stories that I think are very impactful and along with what the Ring of Brotherhood's doing. And they're my stories. So the first time, my husband, who was my trainer, he scheduled me to fight Layla Ali, which I was all about, actually. I thought I could beat her. But Layla, just so you know, I'm 5'3.5", if you stretch me. And Layla's about 6'1". At that time, I was weighing 140 pounds. She was weighing about 180 pounds. And it really would have never been made if it were two male fighters. But it was two female fighters, it was two big names, and let's make the money. Again, I'm not saying that I didn't want the fight, but sometimes we as fighters, and this is what I said at a ringside physicians conference once, I said, you ringside physicians and trainers, cut men, you have to protect fighters from themselves. Because we all think we're bulletproof, and we're not. we're all going to push it to that extreme level where no one else would. But somebody has to be there to hold us back. So I fight Layla Ali, and it was really who was going to hit who first. Well, she hit me first. So in the 4th round, I took a knee for the 2nd time in the fight, and I had never quit, and I feel like I quit. But I just couldn't fight her off anymore. And I stayed on that knee, but what we know as fighters and as teams, because boxing is a team, my coach, who was my husband, could have easily stood up and waved a towel and said, I want to stop the fight. But no, he left it on me, the fighter, to stay on my knee and hurt my heart. He could have stopped it for me and kind of saved my dignity, my pride a little bit. So that was the first time. And then after the fight, it was suggested to him that he should take me and have a brain scan. No, she's fine. She doesn't need this. Now, if a husband will say this, what do you think these guys off the street that really don't care anything about these fighters except how they're going to get paid, what are they going to do? They don't care. They're not going to make sure they go get tested, whether it's before the fight or after the fight. And they're not going to step up and stop a fight, just like my husband didn't. So time goes on. Actually, that same man shot me, stabbed me, cut me up, and left me for dead in 2010. With one fight short of 50 wins. I wanted to get 50 wins. That was so important to me. I went back to the boxing ring. 50 seconds for my 50th win, the referee stopped my fight because I had a broken hand. But that hand had been broken since the 4th round. And I told the referee as he stopped the fight, I said, why? I mean, I just was shot and stabbed. Why would you stop this? He said, because I was at that ringside physician conference when you said we have to protect fighters from themselves. And in not too many kind words, I said, but I wasn't talking about me, right? Because that's fighter mentality. And he did, I guess, do the right thing. Ugh. I don't know. So I went to Cedars-Sinai in LA. They're fixing my hand. I have a stroke on the table. Well, of course, boxing blames the hospital. Hospital blames boxing. I think it was God just telling me that your career is over. You're over, no more. Of course, I came out of the hospital never thinking I would fight again, but I got an offer. No one knew I had had a stroke except my parents, my coach, the closest people to me. I fought one more time after having a stroke. That was the dumbest thing that I myself could have done, but all those people that were so close to me let me do it. So we have to start teaching fighters how to stand up for themselves and not make it look like it's a punk move because they stood up for themselves and their health is so important. So after the stroke, after having the fight, after a stroke, I have decided I would be done with boxing. I lost to a bum, so that hurt my heart, and I knew my career was over. But this is something Lisa was talking about. Promoters. So now I'm promoting, and it's hard because I would never put an A fighter against an F fighter. But we know at this club level, and that's where I'm promoting state to state, we know that's happening. Again, we have to have strong commissions, we have to have strong doctors, we have to have these people that are telling the fighters, you cannot put yourself in this position, because we can't rely on trainers to do that. We have to rely on fighters. And this is the information that we're gonna have to really get out to the boxing world, not just to the trainers. Because again, they're looking for the payout. That's really all I have to share with you. I am so honored to be here, and really thank you, Bernie, for bringing me with you guys. And thank you for what you're doing, because this research is unbelievable, and it is changing. Will say one thing. The Puerto Rican fighter that Lisa showed, his name is Pritchard Colon. At 7 years old, he started in my gym.
Wow.
He didn't have boxing shoes. Only boxing shoes I had that would fit him were pink. So his first boxing shoes were pink. That kid I watched throughout his entire career. He was right there on the cusp, ready to fight for a title. A referee let him get hit in the back of the head repeatedly. And he collapsed. these things we can't let happen. And so with your guys' studies and research, making referees like Tony Weeks more aware, thank you. That's what we need.